Today I want to do something rather unusual. I want you to get to know me personally better. And I think the way to do it is to see me candidly and in a heartfelt way, sharing some of my history, explaining a little bit about how I got to be who I am and what I think I have really tried to stand for in my business life and what I try to really get people to grasp about my body of work. About a year ago, I was asked to address a very prestigious group of speakers, authors, and highly respected experts. And they asked me to freeform about my life, my work, my distinctions. And I tried to really be very open about it. And we've taken a few of the more, I think, impactful, not interesting, because I'm not trying to entertain you. I'm trying to move you to a different way of thinking. And I hope that me opening up and sort of revealing myself a little more openly to you will give you some inspiration to extend yourself and your interaction with your client base and your team members, and anyhow, decide for yourself. Here it is. I was able to be charging $50,000 a day for consultation when I was about 35, and I'll tell you how I did it and how we were able to do, we did 400 people at $20,000 in seminars back in the late 80s, and I'll tell you how we did that in the evolution. I'll tell you some of the things that I think are universal that I stand for, and then I'm delighted, if you'd like, to let you ask me questions about anything that I know that I do know that I could share, or anything about your business. Probably the most distinctive thing that I think I stand for, which was an evolution of my own sort of development. I didn't go to school. I was married the first time at age 18 and had 2 kids at 20, and the need of somebody about 40, and nobody cared. And the only jobs I could ever get were ones that were pure performance, crazy entrepreneurs who would let me do things if I performed and I'd get paid for it. And when you only eat if you earn, you find out very quickly what works and what doesn't and what works best. And I had a very, very low boredom or high boredom, whatever it is. I couldn't stand things very long. So I'd always do 3 or 4 things because it was always performance in totally diverse businesses and industries. And after a couple of years of doing that, I realized that people in industry A don't have a clue about what people in industry B or C or D do strategically, transactionally, mindset, business model. And after doing this for being a transient of sorts and not being able to hold a job for very long, after doing it for a couple of years, I started taking the elements that I had learned and combining them into hybrids and applying them into businesses and industries that had never seen it before, and the businesses shot up. I mean, we had some great little successes. 20,000 went to 15 million in a year. 800,000 went to 9 million in 9 months. 500,000 went to 500 million in 2 years, and a bunch of things like that. But they're all not because I was that bright. It's because most people do the same thing everybody else in the industry does. And I developed 2 things. The ability to, first of all, I called it then funnel vision as opposed to tunnel vision. Funnel, this is long before best practices were out there. Funnel the mindset, the strategy, and take it to industries that didn't know it. And then number 2, I was influenced by some very bright people. I was a young, very ambitious, not a Turk. I was like a snot-nosed kid who wanted to learn, and I had no money, and I'd go to very prominent entrepreneurs in Indianapolis where I lived, and they'd let me sit in and watch all of their business transactions in the corner. I didn't have much money for lunch. They would take me to lunch, and after a meeting or a transaction or a call, they would explain what happened and what the dynamic was, and they would tell me what the essence of their business model, because I was very curious. And that curiosity evolved, and as I got more prominent and more successful, I became very good at Socratic interviewing, at probingly, penetratingly zeroing in on the key distinctions that oftentimes successful entrepreneurs and business people didn't even know drove them. Their mindset, their strategy, their key. Tony would call it whatever he would call it. He would go like that and call it. And I would process that and refine it. And after doing 465 industries, very honestly, I developed a concept sort of like universal intelligence. I have such a knowledge base experientially of real world business that I can look at almost anything, and even though I don't understand it, I can use a reference model of things that I've done and I can put it together. Now, what's probably distinguished my success, not about me, but that you can take is everyone thinks of me as a marketing whatever. And I am very knowledgeable in marketing, but I think what I'm better at is a couple of other things. I think I'm very strategic for clients. And I think most businesses are tactical, they're episodic, or they're unilateral in how they generate their revenue. I learned long ago to work on the geometry of the business. It's trite now, but the concept of 3 ways to grow a business without trying to be arrogant, I came up with 30 years ago. The idea of getting more clients, getting them to buy more often, or get more utility out of them. And that if you do those 3 things, it creates geometric growth. But I also came up with this concept of a power Parthenon, because most businesses generate most of their revenue, their clients, their flow of prospects from 1 or 2 sources. We always tried to build a multitude of sources because it would reach the market from many vantage points, and it would also create enormous geometric growth. I learned from people how to make the least effort, the least activity, get the most current and residual value. I also learned how to reclaim things. Some good examples is I had a client in Australia one time that sold CRM software that was expensive to entrepreneurs, and they spent a lot of money running a lot of trade ads, and they'd bring in a lot of leads, and they'd close this many, and they made money, but they did very little with their non-sold prospects, even though that was 95% of their investment. I took those and started selling them other people's lesser priced CRM software, and we made 10 times as much from reclaiming it, and it became that the main business became the lead generator. So what I'm thought of, I think, is looking at a situation with a fresh, non-linear, like a 360-degree CAT scan perspective, and I'll see if perhaps through some dialogue I can help you.